Okay, so let's talk about buyer side brokerage fees in light of the National Association of Realtors lawsuit and settlement. And really, what we're talking about is who's offering to compensate the buyer side brokerage fees. Because historically, it was a part of a seller's offer to sell. And moving forward, it will likely be a part of a buyer's offer to purchase. So, historically, sophisticated sellers recognize what buyer brokers and agents do is valuable to them, right? If I'm selling my home and you're bringing me a buyer, keeping my biggest asset safe during the touring process and helping get both parties through the touring process so that we can all make it to the closing table, all those things are valuable to home sellers. But sellers also recognize that there are enormous upfront costs to buying a home, getting a loan, down payments, closing cost inspections, all of these things are expensive. And so sellers recognize if they can help allay some of the upfront costs, then they can attract more buyers. And so for all of these reasons, historically, sellers have offered to compensate any broker or agent bringing them a buyer. This was an upfront seller concession. And it became a part of the way everyone did business, so much so that it was the topic of a lawsuit. And in the settlement, they ruled that if these brokerage fees weren't actually being negotiated, if they'd become obligatory, then that constituted price fixing. They also ruled that these upfront offers were too much of a temptation for brokers and agents to steer their clients only to the homes offering the highest compensation rates. And so for both of these reasons, they simply decided to decouple the buyer broker fee away from the seller's offer to sell and make it a part of a buyer's offer to purchase. Now, how do these changes impact consumers, buyers, and sellers? Well, I think it's positive news for buyers and sellers because I think it brings transparency to the transaction. And I think that it makes clear that brokerage fees are negotiable, right? First from the buyer prior to signing with an agent, and then by the seller prior to accepting an offer. But let's break all this down for a minute. So buyers are now required to sign brokerage agreements, and these agreements lay out what their agent charges and specifically says that the buyers are responsible for those fees. And on the face of it, this just looks like another burden on buyers strained from the cost of down payments and closing costs and everything else. But what it really does is that it just simply shines a light on something that's always been true. And that is that the buyers pay everyone at the table, right? Without the buyer, nobody gets paid. But now it's clear that what the buyer's broker or agent charges impacts directly the value of the offer being made on the home. Sellers have always been doing this math. And now buyers can see, one, brokerage fees aren't free to anyone, and what their brokerage charges impacts the value of the offer being made on the home. Now, from a seller standpoint, the value of brokers and agents hasn't changed. They're still valuable to sellers. And the motivation to help allay some of the upfront costs to attract more buyers hasn't changed. But now, when you receive an offer on your home, all of the terms will be in that contract, including any request for seller concessions like brokerage fees. And everything in that contract is negotiable. So again, buyer broker fees. They've moved from being a part of a seller's offer to sell and will now be a part of a buyer's offer to purchase. And brokerage fees are negotiable by buyers prior to signing with an agent and by sellers prior to accepting an offer. I hope that makes things more clear. Thanks.